3 women laughed at her in a mall. 4 days later, they saw who walked in beside her. Nobody laughed after that. They're letting anyone in these days, aren't they? The voice didn't shout. It didn't even try to hide. It just landed. The way a door slams that wasn't meant for you, but catches you anyway. Amara heard it. She kept her eyes on the shoe wall. She kept her face still. She kept her hands moving. That was the thing about Amara. She had learned to keep moving. No matter what reached her, no matter where it came from. She checked the price tag, moved to the next pair. Behind her, the woman spoke again. The beads, a pause, and that dress. A laugh, short, dismissive, the kind that is designed to land exactly where it lands. She looks like she came to clean the floors. The store went quiet in the particular way stores go quiet when something is said that everyone heard and no one is going to admit they heard. A salesgirl behind the counter found something very important to reorganize. A young man stacking boxes in the corner became extremely focused on the boxes. Amara checked the next price tag. Too much. Moved to the next pair. And then a small hand tugged the hem of her dress. She looked down. Zara was looking up at her. 5 years old, cornrow braids, a bright yellow dress that Amara had ironed 3 times that morning. A small backpack shaped like a lion, eyes that saw everything, and filed all of it away. "Mommy," Zara said quietly, "did that lady just say something mean about us?" The store went very still. Amara crouched down. She held both her daughter's hands. She looked at her directly, clearly. "She did," Amara said. Zara blinked. "Why?" "Because some people say mean things when they are feeling small inside." Amara kept her voice even. "It doesn't make it true, and it doesn't make us less." Zara looked at the woman across the store, studied her for a long, careful moment. Then she said, with complete sincerity, "She looks like she is feeling very small." The young man with the boxes made a sound. He covered his mouth and became very interested in the ceiling. The woman's face changed. The lazy amusement left it. Something colder came in to replace it. She looked at Amara directly now. "Do you know who I am?" Amara stood up. She looked at the woman for exactly 1 second. 1 second was enough. "No," she said. She picked up Zara. She walked out. Not fast, not slow. The specific pace of a woman who has decided that certain rooms are not worth the air it costs to breathe in them. The yellow shoes were still on the counter. Outside, Zara pressed her face into Amara's neck. Small, quiet. "I wanted the yellow ones," she said. "I know, baby." Amara pressed her lips to her daughter's hair. "We'll find you better ones, I promise." She said it the way she said all her promises, like facts, like things that had already happened. She didn't cry until they were home, until Zara was asleep on the sofa with the lion backpack still on. And even then, she pressed her hand flat against her mouth so the sound wouldn't wake her daughter. She sat on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet. She gave herself 3 minutes. Just 3. Then she stood up, washed her face, made dinner, started again. That was the life she had built. Precise, contained, held together by her own hands and nothing else. Seoul Plaza. The kind of mall where the marble floors cost more per square foot than Amara made in a month. The kind where the air smelled like designer perfume. Like money that had never needed to introduce itself. She had gone there for one reason. Zara had outgrown her school shoes. The market near their apartment had nothing that fit right. She had saved exactly enough for one good pair. She had saved quietly, without telling anyone, without asking for help, without letting anyone see. That was how she did everything. Their apartment faced east. The morning light came in first thing and filled the kitchen with gold. She had a daughter who drew lions. She had work that paid the bills. She had enough. She told herself she had enough. She told herself this very convincingly. right up until 11:53 that night, when her phone lit up with a number she did not recognize. And a voice she had spent 4 years trying to forget said her name. Just her name. Nothing else. Amara, like a door she had locked and buried and covered with furniture and never ever thought about, being knocked on from the other side. She turned the phone face down. She lay in the dark. She told herself this until 4 in the morning. If your past has ever called you at midnight and refused to let you go, this story is yours. Hit like, because what Amara does next, nobody was ready. His name was Seo Jun-ho. You didn't need to have met him to know who he was. His name lived in the kind of whispers that traveled through walls. The kind that made people straighten their backs without deciding to. He was 34. He ran the Seo organization. Officially, property development. Hospitality. 4 countries. Unofficially, the reason certain things in this city worked and certain things did not. He had never raised his voice in a meeting. He had never needed to. His stillness was the kind that made other people very loud inside. He wore dark suits, kept his hair short, had a scar at the edge of his left eyebrow that nobody had ever asked about directly. Nobody asked him anything directly. Except once. 4 years ago. A small restaurant near the old harbor. Lights low, music quiet and old. He had been watching a woman across the room for 40 minutes. She had looked up, met his eyes, and said, "You have been staring at me for 40 minutes. Either introduce yourself or stop." He had introduced himself. Her name was Amara. She had been new to the city, working 2 jobs, eating dinners that were functional rather than enjoyable. 27 years old, and carrying herself like a woman who had already survived most of the things worth surviving. He had found her fascinating. Jun-ho was a man who put things in boxes, labeled them, knew exactly where everything was and what it was for. That was how he had survived, how he had built everything. Amara had walked into his world and refused to fit in any box he had built. She didn't know what he was, not at first. By the time she learned, 3 months had passed, and something had happened that she had not planned for. She had fallen in love with him, completely, quietly, the way things fall when there is nothing soft below. She had also, by that point, found out she was pregnant. She had told him, at that same small harbor restaurant. She had said it simply, without armor, and she had watched his face that never moved, that had been trained into perfect stillness. Except that night, something had moved, just briefly, behind his eyes. Something she had spent the next 4 years trying to name. He had said, "I will protect you both." She had believed him. 3 weeks later she woke up and he was gone. Surgical, planned, not panicked. His belongings removed overnight. A single envelope on the kitchen table. Enough money to last a year. A phone number. A note that said, "If there is ever an emergency." No explanation. No farewell. Nothing. She burned the envelope, left the money, packed 2 bags, left the city, started again, with a baby growing inside her and a wall growing around her heart. Thick, thorough, exactly what the situation required. She had never called the number. Zara had grown up understanding without being told, the way children understand things that live near their mother's soft places. She had never pressed. Instead, she drew pictures. Families of 3, 2 adults and 1 small child, holding hands, sitting close, standing together. She never showed them to Amara directly. She filed them in the back of her drawing book, behind the lions, behind the imaginary maps, behind the portraits of Mrs. Osei, who wore orange every Friday, quietly, the way her mother had taught her. The call came again the next morning, 6:42. Amara was making Zara's breakfast. Her phone buzzed against the counter. She looked at it. She picked up. Silence for 2 seconds. Then, "You're alive." Low, even, the voice of a man who measured every word before he released it. Obviously, she said. I need to see you. A pause. There are people who know about you. About the child. Amara set the wooden spoon down on the counter. They are planning to use her, he said. The kitchen felt small. The morning light came through the east window, like nothing had changed. Like the world was still the same shape it had been 10 seconds ago. She looked at the wall above the stove. A drawing Zara had done last week. 3 people, standing in a field, the small one in the middle. How do you know where we live? She said. Because I have always known where you are. His voice was quiet. Something she could not name yet. I chose not to interfere. I thought the distance was protection. A pause. I was wrong. Amara pressed her palm flat against the counter. From the other room, Zara, talking to her stuffed animals, assigning them roles, handing down verdicts, managing the situation with her usual calm authority. What do you need from me? Amara said. I need you to let me explain, and then I need you to let me protect her. The words sat in the room. Let me protect her. 4 years of protecting her daughter alone. 4 years of counted coins, market shoes, marble floors, kitchen floors at midnight. 4 years of being enough, just enough, exactly enough. And now this voice from the locked door, saying, let me. You have 2 hours, she said. She hung up before he could respond. She stood in the kitchen for 30 seconds. Then she finished making Zara's eggs, called her daughter for breakfast, kept the kitchen warm, kept the ground solid. That was what you did. That was what she had always done. She chose the cafe 3 blocks away. Public, busy enough, close enough to leave fast. Her neighbor Mrs. Park watched Zara. Zara looked at her mother when she said it was a work meeting, said nothing, went back to her lions. She always knew. Amara arrived first, table nearest the window. Tea she didn't intend to drink. Back straight, face composed. She was wearing the wall when he walked through the door. She had told herself that 4 years would have turned him into something ordinary. Just a man, someone she had once known. She had prepared for this very thoroughly. It did not happen. Seo Jun-ho walked into that small, warm cafe on an ordinary Tuesday, and the room rearranged itself around him, the way rooms do for certain people, without anyone deciding to let it happen. Dark coat, no tie, hair the same, the scar at his eyebrow, the stillness. A woman at the next table stopped mid-sentence. Her friend glanced over. They both looked back at their coffees at the same time, like they had made a mutual decision without speaking. He crossed the room, pulled out the chair, sat down. Neither of them spoke. Amara was aware of her own heartbeat in a way she found irritating. You look well, he said. I look like a woman who has been raising a child alone for 4 years, she said. But thank you for the attempt. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. I deserve that. You deserve significantly more than that, she said. But we are in public. He looked at her for a moment. Something in his face that was different, worked over, like a room that had been through something and been put back together. You could tell, if you looked, where the walls had been repaired. I left to protect you, he said. I know how that sounds. It sounds like the thing people say, she agreed. There was a faction inside the organization. Men who believed attachments were vulnerabilities. Amara looked at the tea in front of her, not drinking it, not moving. They were planning to use you, he continued. To get to me, I found out. I had 24 hours. To do what? To eliminate the threat. A pause. Or eliminate the attachment. The cafe hissed with the sound of the coffee machine. Someone's child knocked over a cup at the next table and laughed. You chose to eliminate the attachment, she said. I chose to make them believe I had. He looked at her directly. I have never been entirely gone, Amara. She looked at the drawing in her memory. 3 people in a field, the small one in the middle. Zara, she said. Just the name. Something moved across his face. Enormous, contained, barely keeping its shape. I know she exists, he said. I have known since the beginning. The roughness in his voice was new. She had never heard it before. I did not feel I had the right. He stopped, started again. I made choices that cost you things I cannot give back. He looked at the table. But a man named Kong Tae-sung has been watching your building for 11 days. He knows about Zara. He knows she is mine, and he will use her unless I stop him first. The afternoon sun came through the cafe window. It hit the scar on his eyebrow. She had asked about it once. He had said it was old. She hadn't pushed. She thought about pushing now. What do you need from me? She said. The man she had loved completely. Lost completely. Rebuilt herself over completely. The man whose daughter had his eyes, his stillness, his particular way of watching the world like she was cataloging it for later. She thought about the yellow shoes, the marble floors, the women's laughter. She thought about the kitchen floor at midnight. She thought about Zara's drawing. 3 people, the small one holding both hands. And she made a decision. Not because she had forgiven him. She hadn't. Not because she trusted him fully. She didn't. But because a man had been watching her building for 11 days. Her daughter was 5 years old, and if there was a threat she could not see clearly, she would not let pride be the reason she failed her daughter. She would not do that. One condition, she said. He waited. She doesn't know yet who you are. Not until I decide she is ready. Not until I decide you have earned it. She held his gaze. You protect us, on my terms, not yours. Something shifted in his expression. On your terms, he said. And Junho? She kept her voice steady. If you disappear again, if you make one decision about us without telling me, that is the end. No explanation, no second chance. He looked at her for a long moment. A man who had built an empire on silence and strategy. On the studied refusal to let anything in. I understand, he said. He came to the apartment 2 days later. Not to stay. Just to see the building. To check the exits. The things he checked on instinct when something mattered to him. Amara had told Zara a colleague was coming. A work person. Zara had said, okay, and gone back to her lions. She was still managing the lions when the knock came. Junho stood in the doorway, dark coat, hands in his pockets, the face that never moved. Zara looked up from the floor. She studied him the way she studied everything, slowly, thoroughly, filing things away. He looked back at her. Neither of them spoke for 4 full seconds. Amara, watching from the kitchen doorway, became aware that this was already more interesting than she had planned for. Then Zara said, You're very quiet. I am, he said. Why? He appeared to consider this with genuine seriousness. It is faster, he said. Zara nodded slowly, like she was evaluating this answer and finding it acceptable but incomplete. My mom says quiet people are either very wise or very scared, she said. Which one are you? Behind her, Amara pressed her lips together very hard. Junho looked at the 5-year-old. The 5-year-old looked back at him. I will let you know, he said. Zara considered this. Then she pointed at the floor beside her. You can sit here if you want. But don't touch the lions. They have assigned territories. He sat on the floor, in a dark coat, on the floor of a small apartment, next to a 5-year-old who had already organized the world into territories and was not negotiating. Amara turned back to the kitchen. Before her face could do anything, she would have to explain. From that day forward, Zara called him Mr. Quiet. Not as a question, as a fact, as his official name. She used it with complete seriousness, the way she used all names. Mr. Quiet is here. Mr. Quiet, I need your opinion on this drawing. Mr. Quiet, you sat in the lion's territory again. I told you. He never corrected her. Amara noticed that he sat in the lion's territory on purpose. She noticed other things too. He came every 2 or 3 days, always with a reason, always brief. The building entrance code had been changed. He had arranged a car for her commute this week. There was a man he needed to mention. Always a reason. Zara accepted his presence the way children accept most things, completely, without needing it explained. She went back to her lions and expected him to keep up. He kept up. He was, Amara noticed, very good at keeping up. On the fourth visit, Zara showed him the drawing book. Not all of it, just the page she was working on. A lion standing on top of a building. "What do you think?" she asked. He looked at it for a long time, with the same attention he gave everything. Like the drawing deserved to be taken seriously, like Zara deserved to be taken seriously. The tail, he said, it would be behind him, not in front. Zara looked at the drawing, looked at him. "How do you know how a lion stands on a building?" "But I know how things stand when they are trying to look like they are not afraid." Zara was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Quiet," she said. "Are you trying to look like you are not afraid right now?" He looked at her, the 5-year-old with the clear eyes who saw everything. "Sometimes," he said. Zara nodded very seriously. She took her pencil and fixed the lion's tail. "That's okay," she said. "My mom does that too. She's still brave." She handed him the drawing. "You can keep that one," she said. A pause. She looked at it one more time. "I make the important ones small," she said, "so they fit in pockets." He looked at her. She looked back at him, matter of fact, like she had just said something obvious. He folded it carefully, put it in his inside jacket pocket. Amara turned away before anyone could see her face, went to the sink, turned on the tap, stood there until her expression was in order. It took longer than usual. On the 6th visit, Zara asked him if he was coming to her school show. She asked it simply, matter of fact. "It's on Thursday," she said. "I have a part. It's not a big part, but I do it very well." Junho looked at Amara. Amara looked back at him. Her face said, "This is not something I arranged. I am watching to see what you do." He looked back at Zara. "Thursday," he said. "What time?" She told him. She gave him the address. She told him to come 5 minutes early, because the good seats went fast, and Mr. Quiet looked like someone who would want a good seat. He came 4 minutes early. 3rd row. He watched Zara perform her not big, but very well executed part with the focused attention of a man who had nothing else in the world to do in that moment. Afterward, in the corridor, Zara found him immediately in the crowd. She walked straight to him. "Did you see?" she said. "I saw," he said. "I told you," she said, very satisfied. She took his hand, no hesitation, like it was the most natural thing, and she led him through the crowd to find her mother. Junho looked down at his hand and hers. He did not look away from it for a long moment. Amara watched them coming toward her and did the thing she had learned to do. She kept her face arranged correctly until the feeling passed. She went back to the kitchen, put the kettle on, kept her hands busy. 10 days after the cafe, he came without a reason. He knocked. She opened the door. He looked at her and said, Kang moved up his timeline. Amara looked at him for a moment. Then she stepped aside to let him in. Zara was at the kitchen table, drawing something with great concentration. She looked up. "Mr. Quiet," she said. "You're here early." "I am," he said. "Is it a good early or a problem early?" He looked at Zara for a moment. Something moved in his face, small, brief. "Problem early," he said honestly. Zara put down her pencil. "Okay," she said. "I'll give you the room." She picked up her drawing book with great dignity and walked to the bedroom, stopping at the doorway to give them both a very level look. "I'll be right here," she said, "if anyone needs me." She closed the door. Junho looked at the closed door for a moment, then back at Amara. "She is," he said quietly, "remarkable." "Yes," Amara said. "She is." She didn't say, "She gets it from someone." She was not ready to say that yet. She pulled out 2 chairs at the kitchen table. They sat down. He opened a folder. She looked at the photographs inside. The building entrance, a car, dates and times. 11 days, he said. He's been waiting for a window. He found one. When? 3 days. Maybe 4. Amara looked at the photographs. She thought about the lion backpack, the yellow shoes still on that counter somewhere, the east-facing window and its gold morning light. She thought about everything she had built with her own hands and her own silence and her 3-minute rule on the kitchen floor. She thought about one specific photograph, the one Zara had tucked in the back of her drawing book. 3 people, the small one in the middle, the word family in careful block letters underneath. Zara had drawn that 4 years ago, before any of this, before the phone call, before the cafe, before Mr. Quiet sitting in the lion's territory every 2 days with a reason. Before any of it. She had drawn it anyway. Amara looked up at Junho. He was watching her, waiting, completely still. "What do we do?" she said. "I have a plan," he said. "I'm sure you do." She looked at him steadily. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. Leave nothing out." He looked at her for a moment, then he turned to the first page of the folder. "There is a building," he said. "Seoul Plaza." Amara went very still. "That's where this started," she said. "I know." He didn't look up from the folder. "It's also where it's going to end." She looked at him. "Kang has a contact inside the mall management," he said. "He has been using the building, meeting people there, people who do not like me." A pause. "People who are willing to pay to have leverage over me." Leverage meaning Zara? Yes. Amara looked at the photographs again. The car she recognized now. She had seen it. Twice in the past week, she had seen it parked across from the entrance. She had told herself it was nothing. She had been telling herself a lot of things were nothing lately. The 3 women, she said, from the shoe section. Junho looked up. "The ones who said those things to me." She kept her voice even. "One of them. I think I've seen her before. In a photograph somewhere. A charity event." He was quiet for a moment. "Min Ji Cho," he said. "Her husband works for Kang." The kitchen was very still. "She wasn't there by accident," Amara said. "No. She was testing something, seeing if I would react, if I would make a scene." Amara looked at the table, seeing if anyone would come. She sat with that for a moment. She thought about herself on that marble floor, crouching down, holding Zara's hands, keeping her voice steady. She thought about walking out. The measured pace, the yellow shoes left behind. She had thought she was choosing dignity. She had been being watched. "What do they know?" she said. "They know you have a child. They know the child's age. They have the photographs." He turned to the last page of the folder. "They do not yet know that I know what they know." Which gives us 3 days. Yes. Amara looked at him. "And your plan?" "I walk into Seoul Plaza," he said. "On Thursday morning. In full view. I make it very clear who you are to me. What Zara is to me. I make it so public and so visible that touching either of you becomes the most expensive mistake anyone in this city has ever made." Amara said nothing for a moment. "That is not a subtle plan," she said. "No," he agreed. "You will be telling everyone, not just Kang. Yes. You spent 4 years making people believe you had no attachments. Yes. And now you want to walk into a shopping mall and announce that you have a daughter." He looked at her steadily. "I want to walk into a shopping mall," he said, "and make sure that no one in this city doubts it." The kitchen was very quiet. From down the hall, Zara, breathing, small and steady. Junho looked at the closed hallway door. Something moved across his face, not the controlled expression. Something underneath it. Something that had been building since the first day he sat on a kitchen floor in a dark coat and let a 5-year-old assign him lion territory. "I should have done this from the beginning," he said. Quiet, not performing remorse, just stating it, like a fact he had arrived at and was not going to argue with. "I chose the wrong thing. I thought I was protecting you. I was protecting myself." He looked at Amara. "I am not going to make that choice again." She looked at him for a long time. "Thursday," she said. "Thursday." She nodded once. Closed the folder. "If you have ever had to stand in a marble building while someone looked at you like you didn't belong, and you had to stay quiet and walk away when everything in you wanted to say something different, Subscribe right now, because Amara is about to walk back into that building, and this time she is not walking out without the shoes. That night, Amara sat at the kitchen table after Zara was asleep. She had the folder in front of her. She had read it twice. She understood now, the full shape of it. What Kang Tae-sung wanted, what he knew, what he planned to do with what he knew. She understood something else too. Something that had been sitting in the back of her mind since the cafe. Since she had watched Junho's face when she said Zara's name. Since she had watched him sit on the kitchen floor in his dark coat and argue about lion territories with a 5-year-old who had already decided he was hers. She understood that in 3 days, So Jun-ho was going to walk back into Soyeon Plaza. And the women who had been standing near the children's shoe section, the woman who had laughed, the woman who had said she looked like she came to clean the floors, those women were going to find out who she was. Not who Amara was, who she was to him. She turned off the kitchen light, stood in the dark for a moment. From down the hall, she could hear Zara breathing, small and steady and completely certain that the world beneath her feet was solid. Amara had made it solid, with her own hands, for 5 years, with nothing but her own hands. Now something else was standing beside her. She wasn't sure yet what to call that. She wasn't sure yet whether to be afraid of it or not. She went to bed. In the other room, on the kitchen table, Zara's latest drawing sat face up in the lamplight. 3 people, standing in a mall, the marble floor catching the light. The small one in the middle was holding both their hands. Underneath, in careful block letters, "My family."